his life was an offering on the altar of an emerging nation. This nation, which we have grasped from his falling hands, is now ours to nurture and maintain, making his love of the land and the community ours, continuing his struggle for the sovereignty and liberty that we enjoy to pass down to all Americans.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Right now we're just waiting for the mayor to show up. As you know, Teddy is a great mayor, but he's always fashionably late. So if you give us a few minutes, he should be here shortly. He's on his way.
You're busted, Mayor. He just got here.
Oh, perfect timing. All right, Ted, come on up.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, now we can start. Good morning. As president of the Peabody Historical Society and Museum, I am honored to welcome you here today on behalf of the Historical Society and, of course, the City of Peabody. My first duty this morning is to acknowledge the local dignitaries and city officials who are present at this ceremony. First one I would like to introduce, of course, is Mayor Betancourt. And if I miss somebody, I apologize, but it's hard when you have a crowd, and it's also hard when you're my height. You don't see everybody. First person, of course, that I would like to introduce next to the mayor are our two state reps, Tom Walsh. Tommy? Right in front of me. All right. Sally Kearns. And I didn't see Joan come in. Our great state senator, Joan Lovely. And then I can see my good friend, Tommy Gould, city councilor. Behind him is a Ward 2 councilor who is unfortunately retiring this coming year, Peter McGinn. And from the school committee, Beverly Dunn. And I don't see anyone else that elected officials. We do have other. I'm sorry?
A select board member from Danvers.
Oh, I don't know him. I'm a Peabody boy. I apologize.
D. Joko.
Welcome. You know, this was South Danvers at one time. And now I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, other dignitaries. Right off the bat, our great chief of police, Tom Griffin. Our fire chief, Jay Dowling. And I thought, Jay, is Steve Patton here?
Yes.
Hey, Steve. Steve is a veterans agent, and any of you who have been involved with the veterans, this guy has done a marvelous, outstanding job for the veterans. Thank you, Steve. Now, and I also want to, of course, mention the Danvers alarm list. They've been working with us for years. They do a marvelous job, and these ceremonies would be not as great as they are without them. Thank you, gentlemen. That being said, I'll get on with my remarks. The Peabody Historical Society was founded in 1896, and its headquarters were established at the Gideon Foster House, which is located at 35 Washington Street in 1909. The Peabody Historical Society is a privately owned organization. It is a 5013C nonprofit. It's not a part of this. There's always a confusion that it's part of the city. I wish we were, then we could get funded. But we have to raise our own money. But we've been here a long time. Now our purpose, the mission is to preserve, protect the history of the city of Peabody. We have a rich history, and that is our job. It is to inform and educate the public about that history. And it's important. As I'm going to speak in a few minutes, I'll show you and tell you what the importance of the history is. We often hear the old adage that history repeats and that we can learn from the past. 250 years ago, we were ruled by King George III of Britain, also known, by the way, as Mad King George. George believed in the divine right of kings, and he governed that way. In doing so, he was supported by a privy council made up of sycophants and second-raters, by a weak and divided parliament, of whom most of the members were concerned about getting elected for self-serving reasons instead of serving their constituents, and a House of Lords, who were made up of the wealthy gentry and are equivalent to today's oligarchs, and a judicial system that was beholden to the upper classes. Overall, the ruling class was not of or for the people, but for their own vested interests. Does that sound familiar? King George, he ruled in great part through intimidation, bullying, and fear. He did this by rewarding his friends and threatening punishment on his enemies. He was a master of the big lie and misinformation. George, he liked to push the envelope and ruled by issuing edicts and proclamations, such as the infamous Stamp Act. Today, we call these edicts and proclamations executive orders. As I said, history repeats. You know the rest of the story. Over time, the colonists had had enough, and in 1775, a revolution was started. A war fought, and eventually King George and his minions were sent packing, and a new democratic-based nation born. Several years later, this new nation promulgated, and on March 4th, 1789, adopted a new constitution for governance, which we still follow today and still works well. Among other things, the Constitution provided in the separation of power section for 3 equal branches of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judicial branch, and wisely contained checks and balances to prevent the dominance by one branch of government over the other 2 branches. These checks and balances are presently under fire, with the executive branch chipping away at the powers of the legislative and judicial branches. Today, the basic tenets of the Constitution and its Bill of Rights are being challenged. Our basic rights as enshrined in the Constitution, such as freedom of speech and assembly, are in danger of being overridden or eliminated. Retaliatory threats against political opponents and judges and the use of military for domestic control are being implemented. We, the people, need to be on guard, and like the Minutemen of old, must be ready to take immediate action to preserve and protect our inalienable rights as enshrined in our Constitution. It is time for us, the citizens of the United States, to pay attention to the infringements of the principles and freedoms the Constitution provides and to make sure they are adhered to. Thank you, and may God bless and protect the USA. Now I'd like you all to please join me and Chief Griffin in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Present colors.
Right?
I
I
pledge
pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chief.
Order colors.
Now it is my
Colors. Parade. Rest.
Thank you. Now it is my privilege to introduce my friend and fellow board member, Dan Doucette. Dan has been running these programs for many years, and he does a marvelous job. Dan, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the South Parish. The next speaker today is our current mayor, Ted Betancourt. Mayor?
Well, I want to thank Mr. Doucette, Mayor Bonfanti, two of our city great historians, for their work today and for helping organize this wonderful event. I'm very honored to be here today and very happy to be here with all of you, my son Brady, our police officers, our firefighters, our high school students, which are great to see. And I want to make special mention of all of our veterans that are here today, our veterans family. So can you join me in applause for our city veterans? And welcome to all of our Danvers friends. It's great to have all of you here. I think of this day often, and I really enjoy coming to the ceremony every year. This year takes on certainly more significance because it's the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And I think about those times and what that must have been like. The 7 men who we honor here on this monument at the Battle of Lexington, leaving their families, leaving everything to travel many miles for a battle. I think of the courage that must have taken, the passion, the desire and strong will for freedom. And it's amazing to me to think about those people, the selflessness, and all of those that went to that day from this area, those that did not come back and those that did come back. And special people that we honor, and it just brings greater importance that we make sure every year we honor those names and honor those that gave of themselves so that our world could be a better place and we could have freedom here in our city, in our country, and in our world. Thank you. I want to take a moment to thank our historical community here in the city of Peabody. So many people that I look around, so many friends, so many people that give of themselves to make sure that our city continues its important tradition, continues to honor our past, our history, at our cemeteries, at events like this. These are important things to continue here to make sure that we always remember those sacrifices, those things that made our nation, our area important, because this area is important to our nation, and we must continue to recognize and honor those that gave of themselves and continue to give of themselves for our city. I want to thank our Historical Commission, our Historical Society, people, again, that donate of themselves, volunteer to help. We have our George Peabody House down the street that we're going to be, we have opened. I hope you all take a moment to look at some of our treasures that we have in our city that are so important to continue. And I'm forever grateful for those that continue to speak of our history, speak of our past, and give of themselves to make sure those traditions are honored continually in our city. So I want to thank you all for being here today to continue this important tradition. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Dan Doucette. Thank you all so much.
From the Danvers alarm list, we have the clergy representative, if he could step forward, and there's a few remarks from that. Thank you.
Good morning. We are here to remember the fallen from that April in 1775, so far away but still vivid in our memory, which brings us here to commemorate them and their sacrifice. These men, these fallen, have set an example of resistance and died upholding the honor of our sovereignty. Their lives were offerings at the altar of an emerging nation. We now see that the evil which men had committed has been made subservient by God to the public good and its positive heritage. This nation, from which we have grasped from their falling hands, is now ours to nurture and maintain, making their love of the land and the community ours, continuing their struggle and for sovereignty and liberty ours to pass down to all Americans. Let us turn to the first psalm. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is the law of the Lord, who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they have done has prospered. Amen.
Thank you very much. If I could have Senator Lovely come up and make a few remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to offer a resolution from the Massachusetts Senate and the House of Representatives on behalf of myself and Representative Walsh and Representative Kearns. A resolution will also be read at the Rebecca Nurse House in Danvers to honor the Danvers fallen. But today, we bring this resolution here to Peabody. Resolutions commemorating the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Menotomy and Lexington and Concord, and honoring the sacrifice of the men of the town of Danvers, the city of Peabody, and surrounding communities who answered the call to action. Whereas on April 19, 1775, one of the first battles of the American Revolutionary War took place at the village of Menotomy and Lexington and Concord, now the village of Menotomy, now the town of Arlington, and Lexington and Concord, where militia companies from Salem Village, now the town of Danvers, and the city of Peabody pursued British forces retreating toward the city of Boston. And whereas, driven by unwavering determination and commitment to liberty, more than 300 citizens joined the militia companies of the town of Danvers and the city of Peabody and marched 16 miles in less than 5 hours to confront the British troops. And whereas General Gideon Foster of the city of Peabody was named captain of the Peabody Minutemen and admirably led them to fight at the Battle of Menotomy. And whereas the town of Danvers and the city of Peabody lost 7 men that day: Benjamin Dalen, Jr., Henry Jacobs, Jr., George Southwick, Jr., Samuel Cook, Jr., Ebenezer Goldthwaite, Pearlie Putnam, and Jotham Webb. And whereas the Battle of Menotomy and Lexington and Concord was the bloodiest confrontation of the first day of the American Revolutionary War, and the men from the town of Danvers and the city of Peabody and several surrounding communities sacrificed their lives for American independence. And whereas the bravery and sacrifice of these ordinary citizens who became patriots and heroes is annually commemorated by Danvers Alarm List Company, Inc., to ensure future generations remember the sacrifices made at the Battle of Menominee, Lexington, and Concord. Now therefore be it resolved that the Massachusetts Legislature hereby commemorates the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Menominee, Lexington, and Concord, and honors the memory of the 7 men from the town of Danvers and the city of Peabody, whose courage and sacrifices helped defeat the British Army and forge a nation, making possible the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights and the founding of the United States of America. And be it further resolved that a copy of these resolutions be transmitted forthwith by the Clerk of the Senate to the town of Danvers, the city of Peabody, and the Danvers Alarm List Company. Adopted April 14th, 2025. Thank you.
Next up is a great friend of the Peabody Historical Society, and probably recognized as a common work between the town of Danvers and the city of Peabody. The archivist of the town of Danvers, Richard Trask.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I appreciate you allowing an out-of-towner to come to Peabody today. First, I want to just acknowledge and mourn the death of Pope Francis, a very humble man who served both God and mankind, especially the poor and downtrodden. It's kind of a shock this morning, although not necessarily too. Well, I am honored to be here on Patriots Day, which I consider, along with Memorial Day, a most sacred civil event. Thank you to Dan Doucette and the committee. Dan is a true gift to Peabody for all he does and all he is. Also present are the ever-loyal veterans who keep strong the flame of liberty and remembrance. I want to thank Mayor Betancourt and the other governmental officials here who honor this day, especially our Representative Sally Kearns, Representative Walsh, and Senator Joan Lovely for their good representation of us and work to make this 250th observation meaningful. I am also grateful to all those who helped preserve our heritage, especially the Peabody Historical Society, President Michael Bonfanti, Dick St. Pierre, and my friend Don Perry. Special appreciation to the Danvers Alarm List Company, a group dear to my heart, which continues since our nation's 200th birthday to honor Patriots Day. Thanks to Elizabeth, Lisa, and Liz, and to you all for coming and participating and remembering this important day. It had rained early that day. The season was advanced with apple trees in pink blossom. By the time Paul Revere began his now famous horseback ride that evening, the rain had subsided. Revere and other alarm riders throughout eastern Massachusetts hastened through villages and towns, warning that parliamentarian soldiers from Boston were on the march. People knew that such aggressive troop movement would only further repress the ancient rights New Englanders had lived under for over 5 generations. Around 9 a.m. in Danvers, a town then including what is now Danvers and Peabody, the population was alarmed by riders, signal shots, and meeting house bells. Men began gathering at muster points. Weapons were a mix of new and very old, borrowed and repaired firelocks and civilian fowling pieces. Most carried cartridge boxes filled with paper rolled and tied gunpowder and ball. Some also carried bayonets, though not intimately familiar with its vicious use. Danvers in 1775 was made up of several villages. This, the South Parish, now Peabody, was the most populous, while around the three-finger Danvers rivers was New Mills, now Danvers Port. Like most Massachusetts communities, Danvers had heeded the rebellion of the provincial Congress, which broke with the government of Royal Governor Thomas Gage, ensconced in Fortress Boston. Danversites believed in their earlier instructions giving to their representative, look well to the rights of the people. They began serious military training, forming new minute companies of younger, more ready people for quick response to protect their land and their rights. Men from Middleton and Beverly joined with Danvers to form these new minute companies, which, unlike the militia, could act independently. Levi Preston, a lad of 18, would in April of 75 march with his neighbors. On April 20th, 1835, as a now elderly man, Preston participated at the dedication of this granite obelisk, commemorating the 7 men from Danvers who died 60 years earlier. This revolutionary memorial was the second erected nationally. Native son George Peabody of London contributed $100, being his first major donation to good causes. Mr. Peabody is now celebrated as the father of modern philanthropy, eventually donating a whopping $8 million for public causes. Levi became one of the last survivors of the Revolution, dying in 1850. In old age, he was asked why he had confronted the British in 1775, and the simple words exclaimed, "We always have been free, and we meant to be free always." 1775, there were 9 separate Danvers military companies. 3 militia companies were attached to the 1st Essex Regiment, the ancient protective unit required in each community. 3 other Danvers companies were alarm lists, composed of older men, clergy, and other exempts. They were to be called out only in the most dire of circumstances. The last 3 units were minute companies, made up of the younger, more gung-ho, ready responders who could consolidate with other neighboring towns. Israel Hutchinson's New Mills Company included Beverly men, while Asa Prince's Minutemen of West Danvers included Middleton Patriots. Forming just days prior to the alarm was Gideon Foster's Minute Company, from men in Captain Samuel Epps's largest militia company. At locations including the Bell Tavern just down the street and the training field on Center Street in Danvers, the 9 companies began their rush by foot and horse towards Concord, changing directions as fresh information was acquired. Danvers companies were the furthest to respond, which actually saw action, taking about 4 hours to get to and engage with the King's troops in the village of Menominee, now Arlington. Our companies included about 300 men, from which now Peabody and Danvers are joined, 14 from Middleton and 27 from Beverly, including Reuben Kennison of Ryleside, who died by bayonets while fighting along his Danvers brethren. 62-year-old Henry Putnam, a former Danversite then living in Medford, had joined his former neighbors and was killed fighting along with them. A terrible, desperate firefight occurred in the environs of the Jason, Russell, and other nearby houses. Many British acted with bloodthirsty rage. Along with Danvers were companies from Linfield, Needham, and Dedham. As the British column surged back to Boston, a number of provincials were caught between them and flanking British units. Seeing this trap, many provincials fled into Russell's house, those finding the cellar able to fire up and ward off hostiles. Other men were trapped and butchered in rooms in the yard. George Southwick's head was, quote, cleft in twain by a cutlass, while 19-year-old Dennison Wallace was captured. Seeing other prisoners brutalized, Wallace ran. He narrowly escaped with 12 wounds. Finally, as the retreating British limped away, taking with them a Danvers prisoner, the deadliest fighting of the day ended. The provincials had fought fiercely. Next morning, Danvers brought home its 7 mangled dead for town burial. The brutal fight in monotony resulted in half the casualties of April 19th, with British losses in that one community of 40 killed and 80 wounded, while provincials suffered 28 killed, 10 wounded, and 3 captured. In 1976, Danvers dedicated a memorial beside the training field on Center Street, from where several companies had marched off to history. This revolutionary memorial lists 20 honored dead, including those 7 killed from Peabody and Danvers in monotony. The inscription reads, "In grateful memory to the following men of Danvers, as well as those others whose memory is known but to God, who gave their lives and through their sacrifice begot us a nation." And now, per Congressman John Lewis's suggestion to speak out and get in good trouble, in good conscience, I cannot ignore at today's remembrance of the sacrifice for liberty made by our ancient brethren, the danger that I believe our nation now faces. Their blood, spilled 250 years ago, helped bring about, 14 months later, our Declaration of Independence. Here in Peabody, on June 18th, 1776, our Danvers and Peabody forefathers voted at town meeting that if the Continental Congress declared independence, they would, quote, solemnly engaged with our lives and fortunes to support them in this measure, end quote. In 1789, our form of government was codified by ratification of the United States Constitution. It included the establishment of co-equal branches of government, the judicial, executive, and legislative. But our Constitution and the way of life can only be preserved by a vigilant citizenry who insists these branches perform as specified in this, our founding document. Fealty is not given to a single individual, a group, or a party, but to the adherence to the words and the meaning of our Constitution. In one form or another, all government and military swear to preserve and defend the Constitution of the United States. Recently, to our potential peril, we are experiencing a self-diminishing of powers and responsibilities by the legislative branch, and the unconstitutional usurping of power by the executive, infecting many aspects of government and life. This is, in my opinion, bringing us perilously close to stripping our democratic institutions. Habeas corpus and the right to due process are being ignored. Executive usurpation of legislative prerogatives, including setting tariffs, massive firing of federal employees without cause, allowing non-governmental personnel without security safeguards to rifle through personal and national security files, disrupting citizens' reliance upon the federal medical and social security institutions, bullying and being cruel to the weak, and risking our safety by diminishing our world alliances. And also eradicating what I believe is one of the best gifts the United States has made to humanity, USAID, which has saved millions. I never understood how such intelligent a country could so cruelly lose its way in 1930, Germany. Now I can see similar paths when good people remain silent, go along to get along, fear retribution, or loss of an election, or lose their moral compass. In our own time, we must face such adversity with clear vision and bravery, and remain helpful and kind to the vulnerable. We are a country with many warts and shames from both the past and the present. Yet we must, at this time, be brave as those young men who in '75 were willing to lay their lives on the altar of liberty for a cause bigger than themselves. When our country and its future seemed in peril, we can't be, quote, sunshine patriots, as Tom Paine described in the 1770s about people not willing to fight for their rights in time of trouble. Just as Revere and the other riders in the spring of '75 warned its people of impending danger, we must heed the present danger to our rights. And so, as Danvers and Peabody had instructed its representative in the 1700s, today we must urge and yes, demand our government, the judicial, the legislative, and the executive, look well to the rights of the people. Of the people. We, the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. If I could have the commander of the Peabody Veterans Council to call the roll and reveal the wreath for the monument.
Color guard at 10. Hut.
Flight at 10. Hut.
Samuel Cook, Benjamin DeLand, George Southwick, Jotham Webb, Henry Jacobs, Ebenezer Goldthwait, Hurley Putnam.
Touch your hand. Load. Load. Look. And right. Make ready. Keep them high. Freeze that. Left oblique. Fire. Prime and load.
Colors. Freezes. Colors.
And right, make ready. Freeze that. Left oblique. Fire. Fire load. Break, make ready. Freeze that. Oblique. Fire! Half cock, fire. Set your pace. Hold up. From the right. Forward, arm.
Order. Colors.
Order. On. Order. Well.
Order. Colors. Parade. Rest.
Thank you all. You can be seated. On behalf of the Peabody Historical Society and the City of Peabody, both of which I've worked, as some will say, a lot longer than expected, it is a pleasure to do a little bit of a more enhanced ceremony this year. The weather has turned out great. The assistance from all the city resources has been fantastic and much, much appreciated. One extra little bit of thanks goes to the retired cemetery superintendent, Dave Cronin, who arranged for the sprucing up of our monument. It looks a lot better than it used to. It looks almost as good probably as the day it was dedicated, 60 years after the events at Menotomy, with, as you heard, one veteran already there, but Gideon Foster also made remarks that day. That was at the Old South Church in downtown Peabody, but really on this ceremony we are Danvers, and we'll let the towns split off the other 364 and a half days of the year, but on 10 o'clock at our monument we are all Danvers. There will be other ceremonies that that our little group here are planning between now and the 250th of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And today, with Washington Street closed, have a little plaza from the Gideon Foster House and the Peabody Historical Society down to the Bell Inn, the site of the original Bell Tavern, where the forces mustered that fateful morning, and Eagle Corner, which is where the monument, based on the original committee, was originally placed, but now it stands 2 moves later. Peabody has changed, Danvers has changed, but as I said, for 364 and a half days we are separated, but at this time we are Danvers. Thank you all for coming, much appreciated, and enjoy the rest of your day.